This will be a building video. Today we're putting together a Metabo table saw, a TKHS 315C, a metal frame induction motor Metabo table saw. To be honest, one of the only ones worth buying. So now I've built enough of these to know how they go together. So this is a wee quick video on how to build it. What comes in the box? Well, a whole saw, of course. Now, the best way to do this is to take everything out, unwrap everything, and then get stuck in. First thing is the legs. 2 packets of 2 legs. Get everything out. Get rid of all the packaging. Next up is the 2 long side rails and your hose, your back fence and your wheels. And then in the box we have all the bits and pieces. 2 short side rails, your fence runners, your back table supports, your safety guard, big spanners for changing your blades, your fence, which also acts as your miter fence as well, handles for transporting, cup for your hose, and a wee safety handle for when you're ripping, and a safety stick as well for the light stuff. And you also have 4 different manuals in all different languages, and a big bag of nuts and bolts. Now, clear a space to build the saw. Lift your saw up. I just set it on top of the box here. Need 2 hands for this. Take out the packaging in the bottom. This is just thick cardboard. Put that down where you're going to build the saw. So you're going to build this down here, upside down, so you can actually get your legs and everything on first, but your up fence is fitted, so it's sticking out underneath, so you need a wee gap of about ½ an inch or so to put the saw down flat without damaging the up fence. And that's her ready to go. First thing's your legs. 1 at a time, 4 bolts in each, 2 on each side. Now this is where the fun really starts. Your plastic feet. Luckily this is all pre-bagged. 2 hooks for the side of the saw. That's for holding your wee safety arm and your spanners for your blades. Big bag of nuts and bolts. 2 plates for the back of the saw for your rear table. 2 for your switch. And a few then for your fence guides. The first lot is this. So you need 4 bolts, 4 nuts and 4 washers for each leg. So it's bolt on the outside, nut and washer on the inside. Now the crucial thing to remember is only put them on hand tight. Don't tighten anything up yet until you have the whole frame put together. The reason why you don't tighten them up is because when you put on the side supports, if these are rigid, you'll have no play and you'll not be able to get the screw holes lined up. Leave it loose so everything has a wee bit of play so you can drop all the bolts in. Next up is the side supports. long ones and short ones. You want to put on the short ones first. They all have these wee pins and bolt holes. One bolt and the pins locate on to the pins on the leg. If you put on the long ones first, the thickness of the metal on these pins will put them out just a little bit. So you do the long ones first. These will be harder to put together. The holes just won't line up because there's actually a top bolt as well that holds these two rails together. So if you do it the other way around, these holes won't line up. But if you put on the short ones on first, they line up no problem. And when it comes to these supports and to the legs, there's no lefts or rights or back and fronts. They're all identical. Only difference is the short rails and the long rails. So all the legs are cut and punched exactly the same. Every single screw hole is on every single leg. So if you need a screw for handles, they're down here on both sides. Screw for the wheels, again on every single side. This makes it a lot cheaper to manufacture because there's less parts needed. Plus it makes it a lot easier for you to assemble because there's no confusion over which leg goes where. Just everyone's the same. Stick them all on. Now for the long ones, because we put the short ones on first, you can just hit these on. And when they're on, the screw holes line up perfectly. And even if they don't, because these are all still loose, you've plenty of play to get them lined up. Next up, you can put on your feet. Just be plastic feet for the bottom. Big washer top, bolt through the middle. Then there's a small washer and a nylon lock nut for underneath. Next up we have the wheels. Now these are going to the back of the saw. So the side where the dust port is on, that's the side the wheel goes to. Now when it's like this, you can put on your two handles, but you have to fit them upside down obviously. Now with everything in place, go around and tighten up every single one of the nuts and bolts all together now. And also the motor for transportation is actually sitting on a couple of cardboard blocks. Go ahead and pull them out. Now your fence guides, short one has gone on here. It actually sticks out just a little bit. Your long one has gone on here. And have wee slices taken out to miss these bolts. To fit them, more nuts and bolts. Slide the bolts onto the guides. And the bolts go into these two holes here. Put on your nut and washer, secure it. Next up, you're going to attach your switch. On the inside. These two hooks simply go on either side for hanging things. Put your first nut on first. Put it in the hole. Next up is the brackets for your rear table. Now these are lefts and rights, so they don't fit this way. They actually fit that way. The holes to the bottom, because if they're nice and slack but secure, it makes fitting this nice and easy. Simple as that. Go ahead and tighten them up. That'll hold the table in place. That's the table. It's even easier to do this again if you have somebody helping you. Next bit is the support arms for here. And just slide in here and bolt on to here. Bolt them on this end, this wide bit. That's what these two longer bolts are for. Now, final wee touches. Your safety guard just clips onto here. To fit this bracket for your hose, these are the only two bolts you have to undo. Take this one out and slacken this one. That way you can just slide this on and put this bolt back in again. They should be the only two bolts you need to slacken off again once it's actually put together. Everything else, once they're tight, leave it tight. Last part of the assembly is your hose. Clips on there. Clips on down here. And clips onto this bracket. And your actual fence can slide on. Now your fence is probably the weakest part of this saw. This is actually your miter fence and your up fence all in one. So you actually set that to 90 to get a 90-degree cut. And as well, even when fully extended, it's not very long. So that's as far as she goes. Good when you're cutting pieces, little end bits can come off and get away from the blade, but for general ripping it's a bit awkward. Plus the back of it sticks out an awful lot, so it's not a great setup, but that's the way she is. Now quality wise, price wise, reliability, power, accuracy, what's it like? First of all, the accuracy in this thing. If you're needing a table saw for the likes of kitchen fitting or cabinet making, don't be looking at this thing. This is more like a builder saw. Not accurate at all. As you can tell by the fence, doesn't even go the whole way to the end of the blade, let alone the end of the table. So back here, it's not going to be very solid. The only way you would make that saw there accurate is by bolting a sheet of plywood onto the top and clamping a fence on both sides. That's the only way to make that thing accurate. It's not accurate at all out of the box. It's more of a ripping saw. Power, 3000 watt induction motor. This thing will run all day long. Loads of power for cutting, especially ripping. Build quality, it is actually quite heavy. There is a heavier model again with a bigger motor, but for this one, unlike some table saws, it's not just light sheet metal. It is a wee bit thicker gauge, so it is quite a solid saw compared to the likes of a Makita table saw like this here. You'd think the Makita one came out of Lidl. That there's a proper table saw, nice solid frame. Now it is a big unit. If you're needing this for the likes of a workshop, it's grand, but for transporting, it's a big thing to be put in the back of a van. But if it's sitting stationary in a workshop, that is quite good. These things are mainly sold for people doing ripping. Anyway, cutting large amounts of timber, just ripping it up, cutting it into pieces. Great machine. If anybody likes to do kindling for firewood, stuff like that, selling away at these things. These things will run for years, using day in, day out, hours a day. The motor is the main thing on this saw. A 3000 watt induction motor. That there is quite a good setup. So power wise, loads of power. Accuracy, barely any. Durability, very heavy duty. Longevity, you're going to get years out of this thing. Price wise, less than €500. It's not going to break the bank. Would I recommend them? Definitely. Anybody doing large amounts of work, like I say, kindling, chopping up firewood, this here, great setup, great saw. Anybody doing kitchen sort of stuff, paneling, anything accurate? No, no good. For the likes of a shed, for doing wee home projects, brilliant. So I would recommend this as long as the right person's buying it. Anyway, if you are getting one, that's how you put it together. The Metabo TKHS 315C. This is the smaller version. You do also get a bigger version with an actual side fence as well. But that one's more expensive again. But that one is also more accurate.